Okay, so first things first, new chair. Now that that's out of the way, let's move on to, let's get our application up. There we go. All right, so I have a new chair, which is going to make me a lot happier. I'm gonna be able to hang out and not be annoyed by the chair constantly dropping down. And this also has a clamp on it. I put another clamp on this one. I had a spare clamp. I put a clamp on this one to keep it from being spongy when you sit on it. Well, when I sit on it. I certainly hope you don't sit on my chair. What the fuck are you doing in my house? Anyway. How y'all doing? Welcome. So, I'm experimenting a little bit with various stuff. If you recall, I have this macro that I use to set up my files in Clip Studio Paint, and I just whack one button, and it puts up all of this stuff. It puts up my vector layers. It puts up my raster layers. It makes a comparison folder and a reference folder and a background layer, and it gives me the paper and everything. And I have been looking at that and going, maybe it is time to update that a little. Should I update that a little? I don't know. Maybe. But one of the things I was looking at was, I was thinking maybe I want my gray to be a little bit lighter, a little bit cooler for the paper color. So I have here is instead of a value of 40 and a saturation of 0, I have a value of 40, a saturation of 5, and I believe I set the hue to 180. But anyway, that's a thing I was experimenting with. And there was a thing I wanted to talk about. This guy right here, fuck, I forgot his name. He's Sir something. Edward Burne-Jones. Sir Edward Burne-Jones. This is the kind of work he typically does. Okay? And he also did this, which is just adorable. It is the School for Dragon Babies. He drew this in 1884. In 1884, he drew this in his sketchbook, The School for Dragon Babies. And he's just got all these little baby dragons hanging around. And then later, I don't have a year for this one, but he did the Seminary for More Advanced Dragon Babies. And the interesting thing is that the dragons are hairy. So apparently in Sir Edward Burne-Jones' universe, dragons are mammals. Because, you know, they're hairy. And I just thought that was absolutely adorable. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Sir Edward Burne-Jones and his dragon baby sketches. I mean, this guy is a pre-Raphaelite painter. He's widely studied in art school, and some art student or other on Tumblr stumbled over these bits from his sketchbook, and I was like, that's awesome. Let me check something. Yeah. Get that fade there. How's that? All right. Okay, better. Yeah. No. Do not save. Okay, so here we are over here. And what I wanted to do today is just sort of go over some stuff. And not like anything in particular, but there was a thing that I was thinking. One of the things that I've always had trouble with is getting poses to look proper. And one of the reasons that I have trouble with that is because I do not draw the mass of the body over the feet properly. And kind of how it goes is, typically you have a foot like so, and then the other foot is kind of pointing off in another direction like so. And this forms a kind of tripod. And what you can do is you can take your feet and you can go, here's one heel and here's the other heel, and here's the ball of the foot and here's the other ball of the foot, and that forms a sort of platform. And that platform, this area right in here, this is where your center of gravity needs to go. So you have your calf is coming up over here, and your thigh is coming up over here. You got your calf and you got your thigh, and then that meets at a waist, and the waist needs to kind of sit in there. You can't have it too far forward. You got to bring that back. So there you've got your waist. And then on top of that, you got your chest. Now you can see that this is kind of moving forward as you go, which is why your feet extend out in front of you, okay? Your feet extend out in front of you to kind of give you a stronger foundation. But now we're starting to get outside of that area. So in order for your chest to fit into this space, your chest and your back need to be tilted backwards. And then you got your head sitting on top of all of this. Okay? So all of that needs to sit inside of this area here. That all needs to sit inside of that space. That center of gravity, if you put your feet here, like so, then you got to draw this little area here, and you got to think your center of gravity has to fall somewhere in here. It can be a little off to the side, and then, of course, when you get into dynamic movement, you get somebody that's running, and they're going to be leaning forward, and they're going to have these dynamic movements of their arms and their head. And you're going to get that kind of forward thrust to the motion. And if you do that little square between the feet and you go, the center of gravity has to be in there. No, the center of gravity is not in there. The center of gravity is up around here somewhere. It's up around the middle of the body. And that center of gravity is outside of there. And when you're outside of that space, you have to be moving so that the inertia of the body is not going to catch up to it before that little area gets under the center of gravity. But that's a far more complex question. Anyway. Grab all of that and kill it. So anyway, when you're talking about the balance of the human body, okay, you've got this bone right here, all right? You've got this leg bone, and that leg bone comes up to your knee, all right? And that bottom part of your leg is kind of flat in the front, and then here, you've got this calf muscle in the back. And that calf muscle has weight. So the center of gravity for that part of your leg is there. Which means this is the wrong place for that leg to be. This needs to be tilted forward a little bit to put that center of gravity up over top of the ankle, okay? And then you've got the thigh. Well, the thigh, you've got kind of the opposite problem, because here you got these tendons and ligaments. So you got the back of the thigh here, and you got all of this muscle up front. You got this bone that comes up the middle. And that bone comes up to here. And then here, this area, this thigh needs to be tilted somewhat backward. Okay? You need to tilt that a little bit backward, and this is where you start getting into sexual differences. And the sexual differences come in two forms. Number one, a guy has this fleshy protuberance at the front of the pelvic region. And that fleshy protuberance tilts everything back, which puts a little crease right here under the butt. And it also puts a little divot right here, because that's how you balance it. This has weight, this has weight, okay? But when you're looking at a woman, number one, you got a little bit more booty. So let's start out by grabbing this leg, and we'll copy and paste. We'll move layer and pull that over here. And now select, hold that down. That's merged now, right? Yeah, there we go. So here you've got that bone, and here you've got the hip right here. Now with a woman, you've got a little bit more butt. So if we were to try to draw that with that same little shelf there, you get this kind of thing going on. But then there's nothing up front. And because there's nothing up front, the center of gravity for this is farther back. And because it's farther back, well, you got to tilt it. And move that over there. You got to tilt that until the center of gravity is right over that joint. I'll move that down a little. So that gives you more of a smooth transition into the butt. But all of this stuff is still in the same places. It's just tilted forward. But because that's tilted forward, because you got a backbone coming out at this angle, the male backbone is coming out at this angle. He's still got to lean back a bit because he's got all of this muscle up front. Here's the rib cage. And here's all of this muscle hanging off the front of the rib cage, but here's all of this muscle hanging off the back. He's got to lean back a little so that he can put the center of gravity over top of that same line. Now, a woman has a slightly different issue because a woman has that same, well, really, everything's pretty much the same for a woman, isn't it? She's still got that muscle up front, and she's still got that okay, and that we drag that over here, and we set that in place, and we're going to go, okay, let's put that where it belongs. Everything looks fine there, right? Well, yeah, except a woman typically has breasts, and breasts are heavy. And they're sitting out here, they're setting off that center of gravity, they're pulling it forward. They're pulling it forward and they're pulling it up. So because of that, you have once again got to take this and you've got to tilt it backward. You got to tilt it back until you've got that center of gravity placed over top of the middle where it belongs. And what this does is it gives a fairly substantial curve to a woman's backbone. And on top of that, not only does it give that curve to it, it's pulling all of this out. It's pulling this stomach muscle very, very tight. There's a lot of stretch going on here. There's a little bit of squash going on here in the back, so you get this kind of wrinkling effect on the back. And you also get this kind of shelf thing going on at the top of the butt. But because you've got this backward lean, here's where your arm's attached. And that comes down to about here. But notice that on a woman, it comes down behind the waist. The arm comes down farther back. And because it comes down farther back because that's just where the arm naturally goes. Then the arm comes down the rest of the way, and your wrist is right about the same location as the hip, right there. So there's kind of your hand right in here. And it ends right around mid-thigh, right there. Right around the middle of your thigh. So you can see here that because the back is turned, if this woman was exactly as tall as this man, she would seem shorter because she's tilted. And if you curl something, it gets shorter. It gets shorter that way. Anything, if you curve it, it gets shorter. That's just the way things work. So this isn't necessarily caused by sexual dimorphism. A lot of this happens because it's physics. It's where the weight is located. It's going to alter the way you stand. It's going to alter the way that you walk. It's going to alter the way that you move. Okay? And I don't know. I just wanted to kind of go over that because that's very much the sort of thing that I used to talk more about when I was talking about anatomy. But it's just the more I look at it, the more I realize that it really isn't about, this isn't about sex so much as it is about physics, so much as it is about weight, where weight is carried and where weight is held. And man, that is not a good-looking woman. That's a bad profile. But yeah. But you put these things together, and it just kind of naturally happens that the distribution of weight between the front and the back causes the hips to tilt forward and the rib cage to tilt backward. And that just happens all by itself. Now, what this also means is that when you have a woman who is less well endowed up front, she's going to stand differently. She's going to tilt a little bit differently. She's going to tilt more to a male style of stance. But she's still going to be partially leaning back because the spine coming out this way forces her to lean back a little, even if there's nothing there. Like the same thing would happen to a guy. If a guy tilted his hips forward like this, he couldn't just walk around like that. He would have to lean back to some degree. And that's a clear difference in posture. Now, one of the reasons I've been going through thinking about this is I need to think about which fundamentals are important for for improving my character designs. And the fact is, what I really need to work on is shading. In particular, soft shading and what's called surface subscatter. Okay, and what they mean by surface subscatter is if you start with the kind of pinkish peach kind of thing here, if you start with a skin tone, okay, the shading on that skin tone needs to get a little bit warmer. Well, needs to get a little bit more saturated. And go to better color here. Needs to get a little bit more saturated so you get this. That's way too much. Let me start again. Go a little bit more saturated and we'll go a little bit darker. So you got kind of this, area here. We're going to shade. That is not very good at all. Not the world's greatest at picking these shade colors. There we go. That's better. So you got this kind of area down here, okay? But on top of that, because this is skin, there's a redness to the edge of the layer. And that redness to the edge of the layer that's what makes it look like skin. If you don't have that, you don't have something that looks like skin. And it's because your blood is red. Your blood under the surface of the skin is red. And your skin is semi-transparent. And because it's semi-transparent, when the light's not hitting it directly, when the light is hitting it from over here, let's come up to a notes layer here. We come up to a notes layer here and we just go, okay. The light is coming down and hitting from up here, okay? And when it hits here, it's going to go into the surface of the skin and it's going to scatter. And when it scatters, it's going to go through a whole bunch of skin. It's going to come through that surface and it's going to start scattering in all directions. And some of it is going to hit something underneath the surface and it's going to bounce back up and out. And it's going to refract at every position here, okay? So what you get is you get this light that's being reflected back up from underneath the skin. And what's it being reflected by? It's being reflected by the meat. It's being reflected by the blood. And whatever is reflecting it down underneath it here, if you like cut your arm open, which you absolutely shouldn't do, everything down there is pink and red. So because everything down there is pink and red, all of that light coming out is going to be pink and red. So because that's going to be pink and red, wow. Oh, that's because I'm working on the notes layer still. So because that's going to be pink and red, that's what the edge of your shadow needs to look like. It needs to be warmer. Now, typically when you do a shadow color, you're going for something a little bit cooler, okay? But with skin in particular, you want to make your You want to make your highlight a little bit warmer, yeah. But you want to make the edge of that shadow a little bit red because of that subsurface scattering effect. I am not especially good at this. And the reason I'm not especially good at this is because I don't work on it. But it's important to get that in there. And let me just kind of go over some of the elements of this. So I can kind of sort of talk about it. So all the limbs of the body are basically cylinders. And because they're basically cylinders, the part that is farther away from you needs to be a little bit darker. So let's grab this color again. We'll go back to our bucket and we'll just go blap. Fill that area. Fill all the areas there. And we'll come back to our line. Fill in these spaces where it didn't. Okay, so now you've got that. What you want to do is you want to make your shading. There needs to be some darker shading. And you need to come down in value. You need to come down towards the bottom here. And you need to make it a little bit more saturated. And you also need to pull your hue over to a slightly cooler color. Okay? I'm going to switch over to my cell shade color. And you definitely want a little of that right at the edge on both sides because they're farther away from you. The side that is farthest away from you needs to get a little of this treatment. Now on top of this, you've got your, I'll come up here to my palette layer. And I'm going to do a little swatch of my shadow color, which is right there. And I'm going to do the mid-tone color, which is right there. And then we're going to do the exact opposite for the highlight color. We're going to go less saturated and farther up, and we're going to pull it more to a warm color. And we're going to do here's our highlight color right here. And you want that highlight to be, the very least, in the part that's closest to you. And you want that highlight to be kind of wide and indistinct. But you want it to kind of sit in there and show the shape of the object. Then you've got the direction the light is coming from. In the direction the light is coming from, you want more highlighting. And you want the highlighting there to be kind of tighter and have a sharper edge. And on the side away from the light, well, there you want a little more shadow. And you want that shadow to fit in there. And you want to follow the contour. And you want larger areas of shadow where you have a larger area, of course. And notice that up here, there's more shadow because you've got a wider area. We come again over to our notes and we just go, this part is wide, this part is narrow. So proportionally, you want to try and keep those proportions. This is one of the reasons you do contour lines. If we were to come up here to our construction, then what we're looking at is kind of here's a contour line here, here's a contour line here, contour line here, here, contour line here. You want to follow these contour lines with your shading. So you see over here, we've got the shadow following roughly the same path, okay? And then right at the edge of all of that, like I've been talking about, over here to our flat color, we want something that's very much in the red area. And we want to go soft shade right at the edge there. And again, right here, a little bit narrower. And then that gives you something remotely approximating skin shading. I have not done a very good job on this, but you can see that the subsurface scattering gives it more of a skin look. It looks more like skin. Now, I have not done a very good job of picking the shadow color for that skin. I'm not sure what I should have done instead. But definitely that shadow should be darker in this area, not lighter. And again, follow the contour. I feel like this bit here is too. What I want to do is just kind of push through that space with the mid-tone. Out. I always want to try and use the blend tool, but it never works like I want it to. Yeah, it just destroys the redness of it. Here, maybe now to get a new highlight. I want to start trying to. What if I use the airbrush? That's not better. I use the airbrush for. That give me a better result. Really, no. I think the soft shade actually does give me best results on. I wonder if the way I ought to be doing this is I feel like there's a technique I'm not getting. I feel like I have the broad strokes of what needs to be done, but I'm not doing it properly because I don't know the specifics. I don't know the specifics of how the technique works. Slightly brighter. I feel like this color is way too. If I highlight edges. I mean, that's something that looks more like skin, and that's something that I really need to be working on, is trying to get skin to look like skin. And then related, of course, is I mean, there's all of the other stuff that you have to do. Like at some point, I'm going to have to ask, how do you make metal look like metal? But making metal look like metal really isn't all that hard. Like, if we start out with that, what I know is that you start off with some very harsh kind of shadows, and then you intersperse those with, again, very harsh highlights. You tend to like put them near one another. So we got highlights right next to shadows, and then you typically add some blue in. But making metal look like metal is really the same basic kind of thing. Just with kind of contour line thing going on. Again, something I need to work on. I need to work on everything, goddammit. Yeah, I think what this comes down to is I need to work on blending. I need to work on I need to work on taking a mid-tone like this, working in a working in a shadow color and a highlight color. This is something that I need to put some time into, along with some examination of how to use this blend tool, sort of undo the banding of it. A large part of this is actually working with the lasso tool, grabbing just the part that you want to work with, and then selection pen and subtract mode. Probably use the magic wand tool. That'll go through to the edges there. Then I can invert the selection. Once I've inverted the selection, go back to my brush, a fairly large brush, to clean up the edges. I could get that real good. Now all of that's outside of the selection, so I can get that cleaned up nicely. But more importantly, if I were to I were to work with this, just go, okay. Interesting. Let me grab the selection, put it in add mode, grab that little space. Make sure all of that's up. Go back to our brush, grab our midtone. Exactly is going on here. Am I just on the wrong here? I think I am. I think there's something going on here with the I think there's something going on here with a semi-transparent layer where this area is not entirely selected. Because I can't seem to draw through that there. All the way up. This is that is not letting me do this whole thing. I think what I need to work with here is using the lasso tool. Do the initial selection. Then we'll grab this area here, and we'll go into add mode of select the area we want to collect. So if we just kind of grab all of that, subtract. Go into add mode again. Having done. Okay, so that's pretty good. Scroll out of that. Go to our midtone. Line. Get that. That should fill up this whole thing. What's going on with that? On the palette layer? It is on the palette layer. Okay. If we get that, yeah, palette layer back on, go back onto the palette layer. So, nope, 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 nope. So we can go from this all this stuff also in the palette layer. Down to our layer 1 copy. Now we need our highlight. We're going to put our highlight on the first part that is closest to you. And then in a substantially tighter formation over here to the side, then we'll grab our shadow color and put it off here. Off here to the side. And over here where the edge is farther. Yeah, something along these lines. Let's saturate that more. Give us a better highlight. And we'll call up the blend. Yeah, the blend really doesn't do much for me. Not liking it. Not liking how that comes out. Now we want to go a fairly saturated I need to start with that. Get over into the red so it's quite as jarring. The blending of these colors is not going well for me. And I am not entirely sure why. It doesn't make I think it's a technique issue. I think it's a matter of I need to be better at blending these colors. I don't think it's the tool. Maybe if I start with the red. Yeah. Then do maybe that'll work better. I don't feel like that's an improvement. I mean, I do kind of feel like it's looking and feeling more like skin, but it's not quite there yet. I need to work on this more, and I'm not sure what exactly to work on. I think I'm gonna have to. I'm just gonna have to get a bunch of reference. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Whenever you're having trouble drawing something and you're not sure what you're doing wrong, go to your reference and look at the real world. Look at how stuff looks in the real world, or not even necessarily in the real world, but you can also just look at it from a standpoint of get something that looks the way you want it to look. Like, I tend to draw in an anime style, so I should probably grab some anime and take a look at how that's shaded and how that's put together. But yeah, that's where I want to go over the course of the next week. It's kind of look more at skin. I got a lot of work to do in terms of color and color theory. I'm just bad at that. I mean, I know the mechanics. I know, like, the numbers behind it and whatnot. But I don't have a feel for it. I need to develop that feel, and that's really difficult. So yeah, I need to put some time in on that. I think really dropping it down to the most basic form and saying I need to work on color theory. Dropping it down to that really, really basic level, I think, is the most productive direction for me to go at this point. So I think that's what I'm going to be working on over the course of the next week. Anyway, that's been almost an hour, so let's just kind of call that and say, well, here's the stream. I don't really remember what I talked about today. Oh yeah, anatomy and shading skin. Anyway, do a little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe, all of that happy horse shit, and that'll be like it. So okay, bye.